Assume that the credit card has an APR of 22.99% and a minimum payment of 3% at the balance each month. In this particular credit card example, the balance starts being charged interest at the beginning of the month and $3,000, and there's no other fees or charges made during the month. Okay, so we're saying you have a balance of $3,000, but you've cut this credit card up, you're not using it for anything else, and you're just going to slowly pay it off, right? So the finance charge. Well, we are at 0.2299, right, percent to a decimal. We divide by 12 to make it a monthly percentage rate, and then we multiply by our balance of $3,000 to get our finance charge of $57.48. Okay, so the new balance. Well, I had a balance of $3,000. Then I was charged a $57.48 finance charge, and therefore my new balance is $3,057.48. That is what I will use to find my minimum payment. My minimum payment is 3% of the balance. So 3% is 0.03. Of means multiply, and my balance is $3,057.48. When I multiply those together, I get a minimum payment of $91.72. All right, so in general, this minimum payment will cover the finance charge because the minimum payment is $91 and change, and the finance charge is only $57. So anything above that will actually reduce the balance. So if I paid $91.72 and $57.48 of that went to, okay, so this was the total paid, and $57.48 was the interest or the finance charge, that means $34.24 goes to reduce my balance. So even though you paid over $91, only $34 is going to go off your balance. And that's really the depressing part of all of this. So what's the beginning balance next month? Well, this is how I do it. I said, okay, I had a balance of $30.57.48. That was my initial balance plus the finance charge. And then I made a payment of $91.72. And when I subtract those, I end up with $29.65.76. So at the beginning of the next month, I'm only going to owe $2,965.76. Right? Which is less, so my finance charge will go down. But if I'm also only paying a percentage for my minimum payment's already also going to go down. So it's still going to take me forever to pay this off. And what can we conclude so far about making the minimum payment? It's going to take you forever to pay off your bills because, one, you are going to continuously earn finance charges. And those finance charges are hefty. I mean, $57 a month, I mean, that's free money you're giving to the credit. You didn't get anything out of that. You got a loan. And, you know, that loan was great at the time, but now you're paying dearly for it. So you really want to pay as much over the minimum balance as you can. Now, we're going to go ahead and take this example and put it into a table. Now, recall that the first line we've already done. We've taken the finance charge of 0.2299 divided by 12, and we multiplied by 3,000 to get the finance charge of $57.48. We added those two together to get $3,057.48, and then we took that and we multiplied by 3%. My bad, wrong example. We multiplied that by 3% to get the minimum payment. Recall that to get the balance for the next month, I took what I owed, $3,057.48. I subtracted $91.72, and that gave me the next balance of $29.65.76. And then I do it all over again. So to find the finance charge, instead of multiplying by 3,000 this month, I'm going to multiply by $29.65.76. I still have the same APR. I'm still dividing by 12, but now I'm multiplying by my new balance. And I'm going to get a finance charge of $56.82. And you can see it's slightly lower. Not a whole lot, but because my balance went down, my finance charge is also going to go down. If I add the beginning balance plus the finance charge for month 2, I do get $3,022.58. And then when I take that, I multiply that by 3%. So if I take $3,022.58 and multiply by 0.03, I get a minimum payment of $90.68. And yeah, that didn't go down much. It went down $1.04. And here's the thing, and if you could afford the $91.72 last month, at least pay that much again. Even though it's only $1.04, it's going to make an impact down the road on how much interest you're paying. Okay, but if we're just paying the minimum payment, to find the next month, I would take what I owed, $3,022.58, and I would subtract the $90.68 because that's what I paid on it, so it goes away. So I now owe $2,931.90. Great. To find my new finance charge, I still take my APR, divided by 12, and now I multiply by my new balance, $2,931.90. So when I get my new balance, it is, or my new finance charge, $56.17. Again, it went down, not much, still a lot of money that you're paying. And now I'm going to add those two together. My new balance is $29.8807. Multiply that, $29.8807 times 0.03 to find my minimum payment. And my minimum payment is $89.64. Okay? When I would subtract those, I would end up with a balance of $2,898.43. So you can see you've paid a lot of money to this company and your balance has gone down right around $100 and you've paid almost $300. So you're really it's just not going well. Right? So let's answer some questions on this. What's the total of the minimum payments for the first 3 months? Well, I paid $91.72 the first month, I paid $90.68 the second month, and I paid $89.64 the third month. So if I add those all together, I end up with a total of $272.04. That's how much I paid to the credit card company. Well, how much of that was finance charges? Well, in finance charges, I paid $57.48, then I paid $56.82, then I paid $56.17. I paid $170.47 in finance charges, right? I would love to be a credit card company, even if it's just to one person who's actually going to pay their bills. You make bank on the interest. So, how much was the starting balance actually decreased? Well, the starting balance was $3,000. At the beginning of month 4, it was $2,898.43. It was actually reduced $101.57. Which you can see, it says, how are they related? Well, I paid $272.04. The interest or the finance charges was $170.47, and the balance was decreased $101.57. The difference between what you paid and the amount of interest is how much your balance was decreased, right? You're paying way more in interest than what is actually going towards your balance. Now, I like letter E. What percent of your payments went to finance charges over the 3-month period? Well, we can set this up as a proportion because it says what percent, right? So, of your payments, of goes on the bottom. So my payments, which were $272.04, goes on the bottom. Finance charges is what we're comparing, and that goes on the top. So I cross multiply 272.04x equals 17,047. Divide both sides by the value in front of x, and we get 62.66%. So almost 63% of your payments are going to interest. Free money to the credit card company. So you really want to pay as much as possible in order to have the greatest impact on your credit card.